Okay, so this is our first attempt at a video cast. We're calling On the Screen, where we discuss whatever we would normally view on the screen. Go figure.
Straightforward.
Yeah, right. Don't have anything set in stone yet for how we're doing a lot of this, just because this is the first time I've started with all this software and such. But our very first thing we're going to talk about is video game movies. And a big reason behind that is because, they've had a very rocky history, and a lot of people are speculating that we may have broken the so-called video game film curse, which is that they are destined to be horrible. Just end of discussion. And it's interesting to have you talking with about this. I mean, it would be cool to have Woody on it too, but you and I have taken film analysis courses in college, and I was actually curious on if that has affected the way you look at films when you watch them, when you're looking at movies, or on top of that, if having children has had any effect on your breakdown of viewings on those.
I think the latter has been more influential than the former.
That's right.
And I don't know, it's hard. My brain, it's kind of like a switch. If I know I need to think in a certain mode, I can flip that switch and engage in that. But being a dad,
that switch is on all the time.
Yeah, because the college classes were, not a horribly long time ago, but I mean, they were. Now that I think about it,
shut up!
I've been a dad longer than I have been a college student. But even that being said, having children, you lower the bar, you let your brain just kind of melt. But that being said, I'm still an adult, and I can look at things objectively, and I can call a movie bad when I know it's bad. So, I don't know. There's a little, yeah. God, that's such a bad movie. I was in such a state of denial when it came to people saying how Adam Sandler's career is just every film that's been coming out that he has his hands on is just horrible. I'm like, no, it's not true. He's still got it. And Pixels totally shut my mouth.
Yeah, but you know what is really going to open your mouth real wide again is if you look at Uncut Gems.
Right, which isn't based on a video game, but yeah.
But yeah, that's just proof that, it's just it's not that Sandler's a bad actor by any stretch. It's that people are tired of that style of humor that he has pushed so hard with Happy Madison Productions.
Yeah, I think it was time for him to give the reins over to somebody else and just, he can bring his unique personality
flavor.
His unique flavor, as acting goes. But I think Uncut Gems it's going to be exciting. I know this isn't pertinent to the topic that we're talking about, but just personally, I'm just kind of excited to watch it.
I am too, actually. I kind of missed it at our local theater, which is unfortunate because my wife works there. But so I just use that as a kind of a thing on him because that's going to be our first discussion, is not what's up on the screen right now. That's for later. But what's on the screen right now is Pixels, which, according to the tomato meter on Rotten Tomatoes, which, yes, I will be using that because I am Tomato Man 7. I mean, look right about there. Yeah, that's me. Man, 197 critics and gave it a 16%. That's the average.
Bad.
Yeah.
That's really bad.
The audience score is at 46%. Now, I actually went out of my way over the last 2 days trying to find this available on a streaming service because I had heard that it was on Netflix at one point. It's not anymore. I also thought it was on Amazon Prime. It is on Amazon, but not on Prime, and I didn't feel like spending $4 to rent it when I can spend $5 to own it on a disc, which I did not do because I wouldn't have had enough time to watch it before this. So,
so here's the thing, if I can chime in.
Absolutely, because you're going to be the go-to on this one.
Yeah, so I got that movie as a prize from playing bingo.
Did you try and return it?
No, because okay, here's the thing. It was so it came out on DVD in October of 2015. Thanksgiving was November, right? So just like a month later, playing bingo at my wife's grandparents' house, and I won Pixels, and it sat on a bookshelf until January of 2020. And so we just never got around to doing a movie night at home. And so we got the kids in bed. We were bored, didn't really know what to do. I was like, hey, we got Pixels, man. And it was still like in the cellophane wrap. And,
oh, man.
I thought it was an old 360 game because the case is like that neon green.
Really? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So they're not in the neon green casing right now at the store I'm at. They're in a black case. So I find that hilarious.
Yeah.
Just because I was looking at it today.
Yeah. So I have like a bunch of old 360 games, right, that are on my shelf. So it was just kind of sitting there with them. So I was like, it's just another thing. But I was like, wait a minute, why is it still wrapped? And I was like, oh shoot, that's Pixels. It's been over 4 years. I still haven't watched it. So we popped it in, and it was probably about 30 minutes in, and I just paused it and looked at my wife, and I'm just like, this movie is really bad. She's like, yeah, what do you want to do? And I'm like, well, I mean, we're in it now. So, I mean, watching a bad movie with somebody I love is still better than doing something I like by myself, I think. So I'm not kidding. Like, we got more than halfway through, and on the PlayStation 3, which, okay, I'm sorry, I don't have a PS4. We're watching this on my PS3.
Yeah, whatever. You've only had that since 2007.
So if you hit R2 on a movie, it'll fast forward to like 1.25 or like 1.5 speed.
Right.
So we literally finished the movie doing 1.5 times speed.
Oh!
Just so we could get through it faster.
Oh, man, that's brilliant. So I would have had enough time if I had done that.
It was like a speed run for a really crappy movie.
Yeah, well, so the movie's like an hour 45, roughly. Which, by your estimates, probably an hour 46 too long. That being said, do you think that it falls under the cult classic status of so bad it's good? Or do you think it's so bad it's bad?
Oh gosh, that's really tricky. You know what I mean? Like, is it the best of the worst, or is it the worst of the worst?
Yeah, like, I'm sure there's worse out there. I mean, it's like if you're talking about playing the worst games of any given year, Ride to Hell Retribution. It's
so
like, do you compare it to the year? Do you compare it to all time, or?
Let me just say, like, I gotta unpack what's going through my mind right now, and maybe that'll help me like draw a conclusion on what I think. But I just remember, like, once we reached that point, the threshold where we're like, wow, this movie's really bad. Like we just had to openly say it. I just sat there thinking, like, why is Peter Dinklage like even anywhere near this movie? Now, granted, that was back in 2015, and I don't have my timeline correct. I don't know if I mean, Game of Thrones came like what? Wasn't that like 2013?
That's around when it started, I think.
But maybe but anyway, maybe you can check for me while I'm talking. But I just, with how big Peter Dinklage's career is right now, I was thinking, why on earth would he get involved in this movie? And then Josh Gad, which he hasn't had a whole lot of like.
Yeah, no.
Screen time, but I mean, he's the voice of Olaf. It's like, okay, like, voice acting is like really good. Like, he wasn't a bad actor in the movie. I'm just thinking, like, these two guys in recent memory have been, I don't know, doing pretty good for themselves.
So Game of Thrones was 2011.
Okay, I don't know. So it was just weird to see like somebody of that prestige being in like this.
Right, and Josh Gad I'm not super familiar with, though. I believe he was in the... I can't remember the name of it now, but it had Kevin Hart, and he was getting married, and he needed a best man and didn't have one.
Oh.
And Kevin Hart was like a for hire, I had a cool life before you person. I mean, that's like the plot of it is like you hire him and he makes you seem like you were really cool until you decided to get married.
The Wedding Ringer.
Yes, thank you.
Which that actually came out in 2015 as well.
Oh God, that was probably a better movie than Pixels. But my theory on why Dinklage was involved is because he didn't have a whole lot of acting credits to my knowledge up until then. He wasn't very well known until Game of Thrones. But then his name kind of started ballooning, and people were wanting him for all kinds of projects. And him having the goatee, and then seeing him with that mullet in Pixels, oh my gosh, he looks exactly like the person he's supposed to be, parodying, and he is parodying. God, I just lost the name. But he has the Donkey Kong world record, or had it, until he was found that he was cheating by using some form of emulation or altered hardware. So they disqualified him for all of his records.
Oh, gotcha. So, holy crap, yeah. They really did make him look like him.
Yeah, so, and it was kind of playing on the fact that, oh, big man, yeah, sure you are. You're a real big man, huh, when your only call to fame is this record that's now no longer a record.
Right. Now, see, if I was of the generation, I mean, I guess it's not a whole separate generation, but if I was born just, 8 years earlier, I probably would have been more aware of that. I wouldn't have to have looked that up. I could have been like, oh, right away.
Billy Mitchell, that's his name.
Yeah. So
just hit me right
anyway,
then.
So all that to say, Pixels is so bad it's not even worth putting in a gauntlet.
Okay. Fair enough. I remember seeing all the posters for him, which, I mean, even looking at... Actually, I can see him right here on the Rotten Tomatoes. And, God, yeah, and Dinklage is hamming it up so good. I love it. Billy Mitchell is notoriously, kind of a dick when it comes to, interview stuff. But supposedly in person, he's really nice. So I'm curious on how much of that's a two-faced, I'm actually a dick, I'm just pretending to be nice for, But, the posters are super cool for this movie. I mean, I'm looking at them here, and I love them just because they're just so bizarre and so 1980s aesthetic. Yeah.
Well, see, here's the thing. So, me being a family man, I had watched the Wreck-It Ralph movies with my kids.
And those are fun.
And almost everything Disney makes that's animated is, just superb and amazing. In my dad opinion, anyway. Yes. So, when we went to go watch Pixels, I was I kind of had this preconceived notion that, it's going to be on par with this animated movie that's about retro video games and all that jazz.
Right.
And it wasn't. So, had I known that we would have tried this new project that we're doing right now, where we're talking about video games and stuff, I would have watched the trailer for that movie before seeing it, just so I could compare how it gets played up versus how it actually is.
How it actually unfolded, yeah.
Yeah, because I can't really think concretely, but I know I've seen movies before where it's oh man, everything that was funny in the movie was in the trailer.
Yeah. Well, or you could get the entirely opposite effect where, with Peter Jackson's King Kong, where, the early trailer, absolutely none of that footage is in the movie.
True.
It's either, a different angle or a different take that's actually in the movie.
Right, because editing isn't done yet.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Yeah, beauty of it. Now, on the topic of this being a bad video game movie, I would like to share my thoughts on... well, actually, before we get to that, I'm going to question you this. What do you think it is about these movies that ends up being... what is it that makes video game movies inherently come out bad, do you think? I've heard people say, oh, it's because with a video game you have this interactability where you're affecting the outcome, but when it comes to the film, you're taking away that element, and therefore it just detaches from its property. I disagree with that myself. I think that has nothing to do with it. But I'm curious what your thoughts are on that, because, I mean, I'm sure you've seen the Tomb Raider movies. I know you've seen at least the first Silent Hill film.
Mm-hmm. So, in my mind, I think that argument, I think there's like a little bit of warrant to it, but I wouldn't give it more credit than it deserves. It's probably over exaggerated as far as like how that could be like primary reason of why a video game movie does bad. I think it more has to do with like, if you take a video game and you're like, oh, this is amazing, the storytelling's good, like the acting's great, why can't they just make this into a movie? It's like, well, what are they going to do? Are they going to just replicate the game and make it into a movie? Then it's totally predictable. You know what's going to happen. Now, that being said, I have not watched the Witcher series that's on Netflix. So I don't know how that's stacking up compared to the storylines in the video games. So I'm talking from ignorance right now.
In that particular sense, I can see where you'd think that. That's the thing, though, people always get mixed up on The Witcher specifically, is that the Netflix show doesn't follow the game. It follows the books that the game is based on.
See, so now we're getting into like an Inception level thing here.
Exactly.
It's like it was literature, and then it was like digital media,
and it was
like
playable
interactive.
media,
Yeah. So that's a whole separate thing then. So I would think like, just, from my own standpoint of just initially thinking about it, it would be, you have a game, here's a plot. If you just take that and put it into a movie, it's totally predictable. It's too linear. Because you already know what's going to happen because you played the game. Or even if you haven't played the game, it's like the game might be well known enough that you kind of know what to expect. But then the other thing is, I think there's this weird teetering effect where somebody's like, oh, they're going to make this movie about a video game, but then it goes too far off on a tangent compared to what the game was about.
Yeah,
like
I can
they
definitely
try to bring
see that.
Yeah, like, I mean, just maybe one to talk about. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying these are bad movies, but like the Resident Evil franchise.
I'm saying they're bad movies, but that's me, and I'm probably one of the biggest fans of the series.
Yeah. So, there's such a divergent, like, there's just a gap between the movies and the games.
Yeah, that's an understatement.
Just to say the least. I mean, I'm putting it mildly. So, one, not the same. It wasn't a video game first, but like if you compare the Walking Dead comics to the Walking Dead TV show, there's a lot of creative liberties that the directors of the show have taken that diverge or modify what was in the comics. So they're both unique in their own respects, but I thoroughly enjoy both of them. They're both well done. But again, it's not a video game. But there are some shining gems in that whole, taking a video game, making it a movie. And one example I would give would be Detective Pikachu. That was actually, in my opinion, it was pretty solid.
Yes, I agree, actually, with that, because here's the thing. They weren't afraid to just let it be the live-action cartoon as opposed to trying to force it into a realm of reality that would, honestly, really, really hurt it, as far as I'm concerned.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, we've seen that with the first trailer for Sonic the Hedgehog, which we're going to get into that later.
Oh, man.
Yeah, we're going to get into that later. But on the note of the Resident Evil movies, since you brought them up, what of those movies do you believe, at least of the ones you've seen, because I don't know if you've seen all of them, do you believe was the best of the live-action films?
Well, I definitely have not seen all of them. In fact, I think there's more that I haven't seen than that I have seen.
There are 6.
Yeah, so I've only seen 3.
Good,
so
good
again,
good spot to stop.
So speaking from ignorance again, I think I would say that the first one was probably the best. Yeah. Just because I don't know, like it was a new and exciting thing of
This is true.
like, you know what I mean? Like it was the first installment. It didn't do the best by any means, but when I say it didn't do the best. It it didn't make as much money,
right?
As some other films.
Had a lower budget too, I believe.
Yeah.
Than a lot of movies at the time. So I asked that simply because looking at the ratings here on Rotten Tomatoes, not that I endorse it or anything, according to them, which is, polls from critics and everything, the last movie, which was 2017, has the highest rating of 37%. That's stupid, as far as I'm concerned. Especially when you look at the fact that the movie that I considered the best of all 6 has the lowest rating at 20%.
Oh, which one? Well, which one's that?
The second one.
Apocalypse.
Now, the reason why I say that one is the best is because they actually took the effort of adapting one of the stories from the video games into the film. Even though the focal point is this completely original OC character, which just happens to be Paul W.S. Anderson's wife. I hate you, Paul Anderson. You put your wife in everything for no reason. Including the upcoming Monster Hunter movie.
Mm-hmm.
But with Apocalypse, you had a good casting for Jill Valentine. You had accurate costumes for everybody, basically. Nemesis looked awesome. They recreated a number of segments from the games, like a number of cutscenes they just straight up remade in live action for this. And I felt that was the kind of justice a video game movie needs, is you need to have these, I'm perfectly fine with you altering the canon to a small degree, or even a larger degree, as long as you pay good faith and homage to the source material. Resident Evil 1, the movie, didn't really do that, because they only had the mansion, and that was really kind of it, and the Red Queen, but that was like the lowest grade anything, because most people don't even recognize that particular nod. But with Apocalypse, you had so much. You had literally shot-for-shot recreations of game scenes. You had an amazing costume of Nemesis. You had lickers in it, which was, I love the lickers. They're awesome. And Jill Valentine was done well. All the STARS members were done well. UBCS was not necessarily the best because Carlos didn't really look like Carlos, although he looks a lot more like Carlos in the remake. And the Nikolai was done very differently, but that's fine because, again, you can make some adjustments for adapting what is effectively a multiple-hour exploration survival game into a 2-hour film. So that's acceptable as far as I'm concerned. And then they went off the deep end with Extinction, where it's like the world has ended, now what?
So here's the thing. Already, just in this first episode, or like episode 0, whatever we're doing here.
the first casting.
I feel like I've already contradicted myself on what I've said. Because I said there was this fine line of like completely replicating a video game in a movie, or going too far off on a tangent and being so taking so many creative liberties. It's like, what level of
where's the balance that's okay?
Yeah, like where's the familiarity? Like it's so different than what the game was. Like it doesn't even, like the first Final Fantasy movie film.
No,
what is a movie film?
That is a movie film, that's for sure.
Yeah.
One that I actually don't recall finishing in theaters.
No. So, because in my opinion, the first Resident Evil game, or the first Resident Evil movie, was the best because it kind of took everything into the Resident Evil universe, but it focused on a whole new character. But that goes against what I was saying earlier about walking the fine line between staying completely true to what everything the game was versus going completely off on a tangent. Well, they kind of did that because they created a whole new character. And yet for some reason I find myself liking that film more than the other ones, but then I hear you saying something that I was agreeing with earlier, where it's like, well, they took creative liberties, but they introduced characters that we're all familiar with, and they brought life to them. So it's like I'm just a bag of confusion. I don't know what I want.
But that's fine, because here's the thing with that. You can like the first one as a movie better, but as a adaptation of another material, it is not a good catalyst for, I wouldn't think. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I like Apocalypse more simply because it is a very good replication of a lot of elements from, the first couple of games, and I felt they were done really well. I don't like the first Resident Evil movie much because it has so little in common with what I think of when I think Resident Evil. Like, you have lickers, you have zombies, okay, but you don't have any characters. Like, you have a bunch of characters in this movie, but none of them are video game characters, so why do I care about them? And, right. It's supposed to take place in a mansion, if it's supposed to be inspired by the first game. Well, you're in the mansion for the first, 3 minutes, and they rush you down the corridor to the lab, and then that's, the remaining, however, hour and a half plus of the movie. So it's like,
right.
That didn't feel right to me. So those things kind of irked me. But as an original concept, as a film on its own, it's probably better than the other two, just as in terms of being its own thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I can kind of see where it's which line am I going to jump onto? Which side of the line are you going to jump to with that, based on your thinking when it comes to that? As a normal film, sure, I could see where people would like that a lot better than the second one. I really could, because the pacing's a little wonky in the second one, because it's only an hour and a half, and they're trying to push in a lot of the Resident Evil 3 story.
Right.
But, that's where my trade-off is on it.
One thing we'll have to talk about in the future, too, is movies that have been adapted into video games.
Oh, yes, that's gonna... That'll be a thing. That'll be fun to talk about. Now, this is gonna sound really bizarre, but I want to talk about, if only just for a little bit, the video game adaptation, or a film adaptation of a video game that I think is excellent. Even though it's from somebody that I hate with a fiery hot passion, and it's not Paul Anderson this time. Although they do have something in common. The lead actor in this movie was an actor in Resident Evil Apocalypse, and he has nothing to do with why I like this movie. And that would be Postal.
Oh man, I have not even thought about that in a long time.
I know. Now, that movie is has a rating of 9%. It's very low. But here's the thing. It does that same thing that I liked about Apocalypse, which is it takes a lot of elements from the Postal video games, which are mediocre, but damn funny, and puts them in, they didn't have Gary Coleman for all kinds of reasons at the time in 2007, but they still had a eccentric millionaire midget kind of thing going on. They had the Taliban being really weird and talking about infecting people with the bird flu, and it's a funny movie. It's all bizarre, and it's kind of the almost, I don't want to call it fourth wall breaking insanity, but it kind of feels almost like that at times. It's, and the director, whom I hate, and I'm sure you would too if I told you his name, Uwe Boll. Yeah, he's the guy who would challenge fans to boxing matches if they didn't like his movies, and if they agreed, he would knock them the hell out because he's actually a trained boxer.
I did not know that.
Yeah, and then a MMA fighter guy actually, said, "Dude, your movies suck," and he left it alone. And Uwe Boll left it alone. He's like, "What? You're not going to challenge me to a fight?" So it's yeah. But yeah, no. The Uwe Boll's whole thing was a was a scheme. It was all a scam, because there's basically to try and keep the economy doing well in Germany for film, because instead of having like outsourcing and everything, if a German filmmaker was to make a film within Germany, there were really big tax breaks and assistance programs with it. And the catch to it was, the worse the film did, the better the tax break ended up being for the company. So he was getting a bunch of these deals for, video game movies, which should have been amazing movies in some cases, like Blood Rain. And
he did that? He directed that one?
He did the first one. And they've done 3 of them. And it took 3 movies for them to get to Nazis. The first game had Nazis. So, yeah. So basically, the worse the film did, the better the tax break was for him, because it was showing losses in production. And the way the weird system worked is he actually made more money the worse they did.
I wonder if Adam Sandler's been taking tips.
Right? No joke. But that being said, Postal kind of hit all the notches that I wanted. Because, Postal, as a game, was very satirical. It was all like, oh, look, you have these protesters outside. What are they chanting and what's on their signs? What they're chanting is, save a tree, burn a book. It's that kind of thing, It's like, just, that's redundant. Why, what? Mm-hmm. Which made it really fun to watch. So, yeah, I just wanted to share on that, because I think that movie is just absurdly fun, even though I can openly admit that it's a train wreck, to say the least.
I don't think it would hold up, like, how some movies just stand the test of time.
Oh, yeah, nope.
I don't think they could get away with making that today.
Oh, God, no, no one will get away with that.
So, it's funny, I looked up the director, Uwe Boll, and
they also did Far Cry.
Mm-hmm. I found that out too while you were talking, and there's I don't want to say too. I don't want to say where it is online, but I found a top 10 worst Uwe Boll movies list. And it's unfortunate to think that there's that many movies that he's made.
Video game movies, right?
Probably.
Well, it's like he was bashing the Rock's movie Rampage, which I hear is also pretty good, but I have yet to see, based on the old arcade game, because he has a series of movies titled Rampage that are about a dude who wears a paintball mask, I think, and goes around and shoots people. I don't know. But he was bashing The Rock's Rampage, saying, come see mine instead. Mine's a better movie. I doubt that.
Yeah. I'd like to see him go mano a mano with Dwayne The Rock Johnson.
Yeah, the man who just puts his fingers back in place when he dislocates them in heinous ways.
Yeah.
So, yeah, fun times there.
So here's an interesting thing I want to throw your way. I don't know if you noticed this or not, or know this or not, but I'm looking at a list of the highest grossing video game movies.
Okay.
And on the list on the Wikipedia, the highest grossing film, ironically, has one of the lowest scores.
Yeah, because critics suck.
I don't know if you've seen a list similar to this or not, but I want you to take a guess as what film this might be. I'll give you 3 guesses.
Okay.
So
I'm going to guess potentially the first Tomb Raider.
Ooh, you are close to it as far as how far down the list it is.
Okay.
Well, actually, I have it sorted by highest grossing, so it did pretty good for money-wise. But
okay, I don't doubt that it's a Resident Evil film. That's very possible.
Ooh, I'll give you one more guess, but it's not Resident Evil.
Is it Detective Pikachu?
No,
Okay.
surprisingly.
I had to ask because I was like, well, this could be a very surprising one, but it shouldn't have a low score if that were the case.
Yeah, it almost got outdone by Detective Pikachu as far as like box office revenue.
So don't count that.
So-
Don't count that
okay.
one because that's like that wasn't even going to be a real guess. I was just like, is that what that's going to be? I almost feel like it's going to be a surprise one, and a surprise one for me would end up being like Assassin's Creed. That would no, never mind. I take that back. Prince of Persia. Final answer.
Well, I mean, really, what's the difference between Prince of Persia and Assassin's Creed?
Jake
I think
Gyllenhaal.
he was. I think he was part of the Assassin's Guild. But
Jake Gyllenhaal. The difference is they were told that you can't make a spin-off, make it a whole new game. But yeah, I go with Prince of Persia. Final answer.
okay, Warcraft.
Really? Okay.
Yeah,
But was that live action though? No.
it did about.
But it was a feature film, so I'll take
It's
it.
true. Oh, you're taking live action.
I was
adaptation.
thinking live action because I didn't want to mention the Resident Evil CG films, but that were
I
like
see.
exclusively CG. But
Okay.
all the characters in that were based on actual actors. Mm-hmm. All of them were actor scans. So yeah. That's fair.
So you'll let it slide. Okay,
Yeah,
so
no,
yeah,
it fits. I mean,
Warcraft outdid Detective Pikachu by about 6 million.
that is chump change in that world.
So $439 million at the box office.
Wow.
And it had a Rotten Tomato score of 28%.
All right.
And Metacritic was 32.
Interesting.
There you go. Now that being said, it was 28% for the critics score, not
Yeah.
that was the tomato meter, not the audience meter.
Yeah, the audience
So,
meter I'm sure was way higher. It's usually
yeah,
the case.
yeah, it was like in the 70s. So,
All
yep,
right.
just food for thought.
Yeah, it's fascinating. So let's move on to the next topic. Because it kind of falls in line with this, is the Sonic the Hedgehog movie from Paramount.
Ooh,
Now,
well,
this has been a very big film in respects to it being one of the rare times that a movie studio has made any adjustment to their film based on fan backlash. And boy, do I feel like it helps this movie a lot. But I think this is probably I'm just going to flat out say this is a very good family film. And if you played any of the older games, you're going to love all of the little nods and homages throughout it. They're all great.
so it's a solid film, not gonna win any awards.
No, I mean, it's a kids
But-
and family film. So,
Yeah, sure. No, I can respect that. And, honestly, I mean, there were some jokes about that they purposefully had the model for Sonic look hideous just so they could gain like hits online
just
for
to
discussions.
get attention. Yeah, just to create the hype.
Now, I
would
don't know
believe
how
that
much-
almost, but at the same time,
Yeah, I don't know if anybody would like take that big of a risk of losing out on millions of dollars.
yeah, or the
By scaring all
insane cost of redesigning.
Right, and I don't know who would be that clever to try to do that. So, but be that as it may, I mean, the fact remains that as far as we know, it was a sincere attempt. It received horrible backlash from the gaming community, rightfully so.
Yeah, yeah. Like, yeah. Go ahead.
Well, I'm just saying, like, I'm surprised that I don't know if it's because the backlash was so monumental as far as like the volume of people that were lashing out, or if it was just the how do you say it? Like, how the quality versus quantity, was it the sheer amount of people that were like talking about it negatively,
Or was it the people that were talking about it?
yeah,
Like,
or it was like how strongly they were talking
like,
about
was it the
it.
specific people and what they were saying, or was it just
Yeah.
the sheer volume that did it?
Right. So, like, had the trailer on YouTube have its comment section disabled, would they still have changed the character model? You know what I mean? Because they're probably going through it, reading the comments. It's like, was it because how many comments were left on there, or is like how bad the comments were?
They would have had to shut off all of their social media, I think, to avoid seeing any of that, and that's not possible in this world. So the tomato meter, 63% on it out of 133. Audience score of 95. Yeah, wow. There's a lot of good in this movie. It's a little fast-paced because it is about an hour and a half, and it is a kids and family film. So, of course, it's not going to be, a slow build. But their introduction to how a lot of things work is done nicely. Like, they don't... Like, it's an original story, an original concept and origin for him, but with a lot of hints and homages to a lot of the characters... I shouldn't say a lot of the characters, but, there's homages and hints towards Knuckles' character and his race of people, and the way that their whole thing is done, at least how it's represented through comics and stuff, too, because very little of it's represented in the games, which is very neat that they went into that route. There's a really cool mid-credits scene, which sets up for a sequel, and I loved it. There's a lot of little homages throughout the entire thing, from the designs to some of the drones being similar to those in the Sonic Adventure games, to some extent, to little notes that you'll see in the background that are like, oh, this switch panel here has a piece of tape up there, and written on the tape is the word Badnik, which is the name of some of the enemy things you fight from Robotnik. So there's a lot of little things like that are done really well. When he picks up the rings, which are teleportation gates, like they are for secret levels and stuff throughout the Sonic games, or the goal rings, if you will, they act every time he picks up a ring from when he drops them, you hear the do-ding noise for every single ring he picks up.
Awesome.
So, I mean, they even have a fresh arrangement of the Green Hill Zone track. I mean, which everyone knows. The thing is just a genuinely fun family film. And there's some really funny little quirks in there, which will be good for, the parents watching if their kids wanted to see it alone, as it is. But then you've got, the fans that are going to go see it and just find all these little things that are just going to scratch this little itch, So it's definitely something I'd recommend you take your kids to.
Yeah, I'm definitely planning on doing that. I think that having Jim Carrey play a significant role in the film is a good move. That will probably help generate revenue and bring people in. Gosh, what's the name of the lead actor? I can't remember his name. It's James something.
James Marsden.
Is it Marsden? Let me look it up.
Let me scroll down here. It is James Marsden. Yep, he is Cyclops.
Oh, yeah. Gosh, well, that hasn't been for a while, has it?
It's been a bit.
Yeah, because I was going to say I couldn't think of anything recently that he's been in that's noteworthy. I mean, I know he's been doing a lot of smaller movies, less notable movies, but yeah, I guess that would be the last bit. Well, no, wait, hold on.
Last really big thing, I think.
Well, see, the last X-Men movie I saw was back when the first X-Men movies were coming out. That was early 2000s.
Yeah, X-Men 3 was, I think, it was the last one he was involved in, I believe.
Okay. But anyway, he's a solid actor. I'd like to see him in more things.
Oh yeah, and I just remembered what Sonic calls him, and it's great. I'm not going to say it because it'll spoil things.
Okay.
Because, gosh, is it funny.
Well, I'll have to wait until I see the movie.
Yeah, Jim Carrey is excellent, by the way, as Robotnik, because he's channeling his 1990s style self, which is very fitting for Robotnik circa the Sonic Boom stylings. He's more of a comedic kind of villain, and he brings it to this in a very nice way, because it's like taking all the various changes to the Sonic games, elements from each different canon, I guess, if you will, and mixing them together just right into an original story, but the original story has elements from all over the games, so you don't feel as bad. You're just finding all these nuanced things that are just kind of jumping at you, and it kind of makes you feel good and fuzzy.
Okay, so kudos to Sonic the Hedgehog. Fun fact, so I was looking at the information for that movie, and the voice of Sonic...
Ben Schwartz.
Yeah, he's also he does the sounds for BB-8 in the new Star Wars trilogy.
Oh, really? Okay.
Mm-hmm. Found that very interesting. Yeah, hey, you nailed it. Good job.
Yeah, I do better R2 than I do BB-8, but so yeah, that's, I don't know. I'm excited to see things kind of turn around when it comes to video game film adaptations. So next up here, we are going to move into the Nintendo PlayStation coming up for sale. Now, this is an interesting one because I have actually physically seen this thing in person. The first event I believe this was taken to was the Portland Retro Video Game Expo. And this is the event that my wife and I go to like every year. So when I heard this was going to be there, I was kind of freaking out a bit because I love me some Nintendo, but I am a huge fan of the PlayStation and a lot of the properties on it. At the time, it actually did not work. It would, of course, power on, but they couldn't get it to read any of the Super Famicom games or any CDs. So at the show, they actually had a gentleman there who was going to attempt to repair it under their close, guise and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Gaze, excuse me. And they couldn't get the disc tray to read the CDs because the idea of the PlayStation was that it could also play CDs.
Right.
But they did get the Super Famicom working because it's effectively just get the Super Nintendo to work. So at the show, they actually were letting people play the Nintendo PlayStation. They were playing, Mario World on it. So that was a really cool thing, to be able to be a part of that and to see that. Now, the current bid is at $350,000. There is I believe a 19% markup, a 19% fee to the auction site. So that'll actually bump up the price. So the bid for the system is $350K, but including the buyer's premium, it's at $4,200 or $420K. So it's a $70,000 increase.
Wow!
And that just goes to the site, I believe.
Can you do PayPal credit?
Right. And it only half works, supposedly, because I don't know if they ever got the CD tray to read discs or not. So he has turned down a couple of offers in the past. I have heard rumors of a particular offer being very high that was turned down. So my question to you is, how much do you think that offer was?
The one that got turned down?
The highest offer that he turned down. When it didn't work, to my understanding. So when it was still broken.
And he turned down the offer.
Yes, and it was a big number.
Okay, well, you're making it sound like it was bigger than what it's currently at in auction, so I'm going to guess somebody was not... hopefully I'm not guessing too high, because I don't want to take the wind out of your sails. But I'm guessing they offered $1 million.
So, supposedly in the past, he had turned down a $1.2 million offer.
Whoa.
Yeah, I don't know how accurate that is necessarily, because I didn't hear it from the guy when I talked to him. But, because this was, of course, a couple years ago now.
Right.
I guess more recently someone offered him $10,000 for it, so obviously he said no. And I guess the guy was being kind of a stuck up about it. But again, this is all hearsay. I don't know exactly how that went down. It's like, oh, he's so unrealistic wanting more than 10,000 for it. It's like, well, I mean, if you're offering him 10,000 now when the Super Famicom part works, and he had previously turned down a higher offer, why would he accept your low one? You know?
Obviously, yeah. So, so maybe you can educate me a little bit. Was this like a name of a Nintendo console? Like it was called the Nintendo PlayStation?
Yes, technically. The PlayStation we got was supposed to be a joint effort with Nintendo and Sony. I'm sure you've heard some of this before, but
yeah,
you don't follow up on it nearly as much as I do. What it was is Sony was originally signed on with Nintendo to do a add-on for the Super Nintendo and a joint system referred to as the PlayStation, and that would be a disc-based media system. However, the licensing agreement, Nintendo later realized in their signed agreements that it would give Sony more power over the software than Nintendo would have liked. So without informing anyone at Sony, Nintendo made a side deal with Philips, and thus that whole thing was announced instead of the Nintendo PlayStation collaboration. So this was developed, this prototype was developed and put together during the time frame before it was even announced this thing was built. Because this is, all of that. And Nintendo instead announced the partnership with Philips. And that, as we all know, fell through. Because we don't have a disc-based system for the Super Nintendo at all. And as a result of that contract that was signed with Philips, it gave them licensing capability for at least 4, possibly more, Nintendo. It gave them access to Nintendo characters for so many games. So what they did is they made 3 Zelda games for the Philips CDI, and at least 1 Mario game for the CDI called Hotel Mario. I don't remember the rest offhand, but I mean, basically Philips walked away with what could only be described as a blank check for their machine, and Nintendo got nothing. So Nintendo really screwed themselves in that whole deal, because if they had stuck with Sony, boy, there would be a monopoly worldwide.
Somewhere out there in an alternate universe,
we got the machine we deserved.
Right.
So yeah, I'm very curious to see if this is going to end up selling below or at the original rumored declined price that I had quoted you. I'm not exactly sure how true that declined price was, but I mean, at this point, this is the most expensive piece of gaming memorabilia out there. Wow. It is actually the highest valued item based on this auction.
Wow. It has a headphone jack.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, because, if you look at the disc tray, it looks just almost exactly like the CD drive you would have in your 95 Windows PC. I mean...
Heck, they should have just put a AA battery port underneath. You could have it like a Walkman.
Sega already did that. It's called the Cd X. I know, right? Yeah, the Sega Cd X it took 6 AA batteries, I believe, and you can use it as a Walkman, or you can plug it into your TV and play Sega CD games or Sega Genesis games.
What a novelty.
Yeah, right? But you can't do it off of the batteries. You have to have the power adapter for the part. But it doubled as a Walkman, which is really neat. And it was really compact. I've got one in the other room. They're super cool.
Nice.
So yeah, might follow back up on this, because this auction doesn't end for another 19 days. So that'll be a while.
We should definitely do a quick little recording the day after it ends.
Yeah, if nothing else, we'll talk about it just to see it where it's at, because I'm very curious on where that ends up at. So, next up, we've got this interesting little tidbit I just want to talk about because it involves games that we've played growing up. And that is that Insomniac Games was purchased by PlayStation, was purchased by Sony. A lot of people already thought they were owned by Sony, but that hasn't been the case for a very long time. Some games they're well known for are, I think it was it the Ratchet and Clank series? Yes, it was Ratchet and Clank. And
fun fact.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I know they made Resistance, which was like the PlayStation's version of Call of Duty, or like the competitor against Halo, kind of, sort of.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. They also were responsible for the original Spyro the Dragon, as well as the more recent Marvel Spider-Man game for PS4.
Oh.
So, yeah, they've got, a good record here. So, yeah, it was Spyro and Ratchet and Clank were their big things, and they made while they were independent, they made a game for Microsoft called Sunset Overdrive.
Yeah.
And that is the same, the engine they used for that, or made for that, is the same engine they used for Spider-Man.
Huh.
So, yeah.
You know what Sunset Overdrive reminds me of, just vaguely? There was a game on Xbox that you and Woody played, and you guys tried to get me to play it too. It was... Gosh, what was it? It's going to drive me nuts.
Give me any descriptors, and I'll see if I can't figure it out. Like any.
It was kind of like a punky, like Rebels versus like police state type thing, and there was objectives like capture the flag. It was like a dystopia type deal. Gosh, it's going to piss me off.
It wasn't Phantom Dust, was it?
No, gosh, this is going to suck. I gotta start looking it up. Anyway, go ahead and keep talking.
That was a spoon. But yeah, so I just think it's neat that, they, like, I think it's like Sony saw, oh, Spider-Man did very well for us. Mm-hmm. We should probably own that studio again. I'm trying to see what else they've done, but honestly, I mean, Ratchet and Clank, Spyro, and Resistance, like, those are the things they've really, like, done. I mean, they've had a couple of other games here and there, but man, that is it.
Mm-hmm. Well, good. I mean, the last Spider-Man game that came out did really well.
Oh man, it was a really fun game to play too. Like, it felt really good to play. So yeah, it's a good thing that happened. Now, Sony doesn't own the Spyro rights, and Insomniac also does not own the Spyro rights. And the last Spyro game was made by Toys for Bob, and that was the HD remakes, which were super good. I'm very curious now on who currently owns the rights to Spyro, because I want to know if there's any chance of them doing a new Spyro game. But I think Spyro is currently owned by Activision. Yeah, it was originally owned by Universal Pictures, created by Insomniac, but I knew that. But who currently owns it? Activision. So, no. I was really hoping that wasn't the case, because Activision is not as bad as EA, but it is not a good place to be at for ownership.
Yeah.
You can't make Call of Duty? Be gone with you.
No.
So, yeah, there's no hopes in that. But I'm interested to see if Insomniac's going to end up making anything new, like anything different from what we've already seen. Like, Resistance was a breath of fresh air at the time, just because, like, you had this, like, more gritty and real take on over-the-top bizarro weapons like we got out of Ratchet and Clank. So it's like, all right,
Right.
I'm down for that.
Oh, geez. You know what? I'm so dumb for saying it was like a Halo contender. I think they did that in response to Gears of War.
Both. I'm gonna say both.
Both and, yeah.
Yeah, because you got the grittiness of the Gears effect. You have the first person and kind of aesthetic feel of Halo in terms of the competitive match feel.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we played. I think we played Resistance together for a bit.
I remember the game now.
Oh yeah,
This dystopian like punks versus like police state type game or whatever.
Was it Brink?
Yep.
Ah, yeah.
Because they had parkour incorporated in there too. It's just like climbing over, like
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of Team Fortress 2 almost.
Mm-hmm.
Just a little bit.
Yeah. So I don't know. Just I'm not very familiar at all with Brink because I didn't really play it a whole lot. But it just kind of reminds me like Sunset Overdrive seems like a spiritual successor.
I see where you get that for sure. Because again, they've got like some similar, like much like Team Fortress 2, they have similar model designs to a minor extent.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, Brink was a mess, but the objective-based gameplay was fun. That's part of why my favorite mode in any Halo game is always going to be Invasion, because it was objective-based, and the map like altered a little bit based on performance, and it kind of slid the scales of who had the advantage based on, you know, where the map was at in its growth, which was really neat.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I definitely see the comparison to that. Oh man, Insomniac Games though, back at Sony. So it'll be cool to see where they take the Spider-Man game when they do the sequel, because Marvel's been so supportive of that. It's been insane. They actually launched a Spider-Man comic based on Insomniac Games' unique and fresh canon that they made for the game.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Huh.
So that, I think, is just fantastic, because I really like the more, like, mentorish kind of thing. You get a real solid feel for it in Spider-Man with Dr. Ock.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Doc Ock is like a very sincere mentor to Peter, and you watch his decline throughout the game. It's very cool. Very, very well done pacing and very good story. And the collectibles aren't over the top in it, so I'm excited to see where they take it, you know?
Cool. I'm surprised that Insomniac didn't also do the Avengers game.
Yeah, so that simply because of the whole thing that they're on board with Marvel with. Yeah, that's a really weird one. Like, there was a Avengers game that actually was originally going to be a first-person 4-player thing that got completely scrapped. And then, I don't know if that was during the time or post the time, but Square got on board with Marvel, and they are, as we all know now, making a Marvel's Avengers game, which is influenced by, but not based on, the cinematic universe. So
right, which I think a lot of people at E3 were like thrown off by that.
Yeah, well, because like there's very clear design elements from it. They're like, this isn't playing out the same at all. What's happening?
Right. Plus, that was like, I mean, right around like the climax of the whole Infinity story arc.
Exactly. Had Insomniac been involved in that, I think we would end up with a absolutely astounding and amazing game. That being said, I'm very interested to see how Square's, setup goes, because it also looks like a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, I just wanted to touch on Insomniac because we grew up playing their games on the PlayStation, on all 3 variations of the PlayStation up until that point. So,
yep,
it's just neat to see that go that route. So now we're going to move on to something that you're not all that familiar with, and I'm kind of trying to get myself involved in a bit more too, and that is some fighting games a little bit with the most recent reveals of the EVO 2020 tournament lineup.
Yeah.
Now, this was one that I've started trying to follow this a little bit because I like the concept of esports, simply because you don't have to be, jacked up dude bro at the gym to be able to compete in a tournament. Shows that, it's not just about your physical strength in a tournament. It's also about, your ability to calculate things and just think through a situation. Same thing with like tournament chess, you don't have to be, physically fit to be able to play, enjoy, and compete in chess. And it's the same setup with this. So we've got, obviously, Street Fighter V. Street Fighter's always been at these tournaments. I mean, we all know that. It's like...
It will never not be at one of these tournaments.
There will never not be a Street Fighter game at EVO, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, there's no way there's not going to be. It's the rules. We got Tekken 7, which I have not played at all yet. I have it. But I grew up playing Tekken 3. I mean, on the original PlayStation. That game was amazing. Anybody that was a fan of a 3D fighter, it was probably Tekken 3 at that time. And then, of course, the motherlode of crossover, Smash Brothers Ultimate.
Gosh, just a huge roster in that game.
It is an amazing game. I'm so glad it exists. I have so much fun with so many of these characters in that one. You don't have to be a fighting game fan at all to enjoy Smash Brothers. That's just dumb fun right there, okay? Now, Granblue Fantasy Versus, I know virtually nothing about, but it's not out yet. I know that it's using the same engine as the last Guilty Gear games and Dragon Ball Z Fighters. It's just the same development team. So that kind of irks me a bit that the same devs are on there, like, multiple times. Just because I don't like that it almost feels like you're picking favorites, and then you've also got Under Night in Birth, which I think is also an Arc System game. So I think that would be 3 games then, by the same developer. So it's kind of, weird as far as I'm concerned with that. And then you've got Soul Calibur 6, which they've got a very bizarre list of DLC characters. Have you seen some of those?
I do know that The Witcher's in there.
Yeah, he is. Actually, it's almost... maybe I've gotten them mixed up. Tekken 7 has the most bizarre DLC characters. But yes, The Witcher is a character in Soul Calibur 6, which is awesome. In Tekken 7, you've got Noctis from Final Fantasy.
What?
Yeah, from Final Fantasy 15. Boy, does that not make sense. That would have made way more sense for a Soul Calibur game, don't you agree? Same thing.
Yeah, that's...
Go ahead.
No, I'm just agreeing with you. That's totally, bizarre.
You've got Negan from The Walking Dead, the live-action show.
Wow.
Yeah. And then you've got 2B from Nier Automata. No, wait. That one, I think, is Soul Calibur. So that's very fitting.
I would, okay, sorry to go back, but I would have thought maybe if Noctis was going to be in any fighting game, maybe they would have just added him to Smash Bros.
Right. I think the reason why they weren't going to do that is because they were pushing for Cloud, more in terms of the hype train at the time.
Right, and Cloud is more iconic, to be fair.
Yeah, honestly, I'm not a big fan of Noctis in terms of character. I'm not a big fan of his game, which is the sad thing. I played through it, I enjoyed it, but it's not the lasting, striking, get everyone involved in Final Fantasy game that they were trying to make it out to be. But I am glad that he's making it into a crossover game, because I do think that more people need to experience Final Fantasy games.
Yeah.
But he would have been more suited for Soul Calibur because he uses a longsword, primarily. This is just weird. And then we've also got Samurai Shodown, which released last year, which is a new take from SNK.
Right, and I think that's why they didn't have King of Fighters in there.
Yeah.
They're all SNK.
Yes. Samurai Shodown was a more recent release, so they went with that. The last King of Fighters game that was new was 14, and that came out 2016. Which I've actually been playing a little bit of the King of Fighters games more so, because I remember them from the arcade, just like Samurai Shodown and Metal Slug. I mean, those were all just big name hitters in the the fourplex things for the SNKs. And I'm really digging a lot of the character designs and the play from King of Fighters 14. So it's a fun fighter. I'm enjoying that. And I got Samurai Shodown because I like weapons-based fighters. I mean, if it's not for 3D fighters, if it wasn't for Tekken, then it would be just straight up Soul Calibur for me. I mean, hands down. I mean, I know you and I duked it out real good with the second game there. That was man,
so many hours put into that.
Oh, countless.
Yeah.
Oh man!
And, Soul Calibur 3 also I put some time into.
I did too, and it was the first with the character creator.
Yep.
And it was a lot of fun to make monstrosities.
Yeah, I just gotta say that like Samurai Shodown, I remember playing that on the Sega Genesis.
Yes, they did get a. I don't remember which one. I think it was 2. I think they ported that one to the second.
And I really enjoyed it. But that being said, King of Fighters 95 on the Neo Geo, that thing.
Dude, yes.
I wish they would have had that in there, but again, the whole already having one publisher on there. That being said, I mean,
you've got 3 right there with Under Night, Granblue, and Dragon Ball Fighters.
That's true.
But at the same time, I'm sure they all play very differently. They may be using the same engine, but I mean, you've got one that's clearly a weapons-based style fighter, one that is. I don't remember much about Under Night at all. And then you've got Dragon Ball Fighters, which has a very bizarre mix of ranged attacks and close range attacks.
Right.
So, I mean, I'm not sure how that functions in. But the real draw point that I wanted to come to with this was Marvel vs. Capcom 2 returning to EVO. Now, this is another game that we've actually got some experience in, aside from when we were doing the prototype, if you will, of Lost Saves, where we were goofing off with that, and playing, of course, with Woody, with his Xbox copy. I mean, this is like one of those, like, stupid, fun, weird crossover games, but it's also incredibly old to be on here. I mean, the game is older than many of the attendants that are going to EVO, which is...
Gosh, it makes me feel so old.
Oh, dude, yeah, no joke. Because this game is like 20 years old.
Yeah.
And most professional gamers are teenagers. And most fighting game, players are around the age, like when you're looking at big tournament players, a large number of them are in their early 20s. So this is like something that this would have been long gone in terms of, something they would have played by the time they'd actually gotten into, these kind of games.
Fun fact, first time I played this I was in 5th grade, and my neighbor had a Dreamcast.
Oh, dude.
Yeah.
So, it's funny you say that, too. The Dreamcast version is considered the most accurate and arcade-perfect version of the game.
Huh.
Yeah. The thing with the Dreamcast architecture is it was very, very, very similar to, I believe it was Sega's Naomi board sets that they were using in their arcade machines at the time. So a lot of arcade games were very easy to bring over onto the Dreamcast because of how similar their architecture was. So the Dreamcast has a lot of fighting games on it, or a lot of arcade games even, and a lot of them are very, very, very accurate to the arcade. So a lot of people love the Dreamcast because of that, and a lot of games that came to it actually from arcades never went anywhere else. Like, you cannot get them anywhere else. So it's just one of those neat little things. So I'm actually kind of curious, like, which variation, like it says Tournament of Champions on there. I'm not sure if that's a particular build they're going to be using, or if it's a particular system or release they're going to be using. I'm curious if it's going to be like the Xbox arcade version, or if it's going to be running on original Xboxes or PS2s, or if it's running on Dreamcast systems, which would be awesome.
That would be amazing.
I mean, it'd be really cool to just see them bust it out. It's like, yeah, this was from like the early days of EVO, because this game was incredibly prominent in the early days of EVO. So it's very interesting to see, like, you've got all these games which are within the last like 5 years, and then you've got this 20-year-old icon sitting right smack dab in the middle. So it's a really neat thing to see, and I really wish Kyubi would have answered me when I asked him what he was signing up for, because he's gone to EVO the last 2 years and gotten his rear handed to him royally the first round every time. But that's because he's also been put up against like professional fighting game people that he has followed. So he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna die." It's kind of like been his response to round one every time. But that's not the important part. It's that he goes to Vegas and he has a great time socializing with other fighting game fans. And that's really what's important about stuff like this. It brings people together in a unique way. And I really wish he had told me what he was going to be playing in so I could try and tune into it. Because EVO is broadcasts every year as well through various streams. So I'd like to watch him get his butt handed to him live if possible. But I don't know if I'll be able to do that.
Oh.
So
yeah, Marvel vs. Capcom. It's weird to have like Mega Man and Magneto and Jill Valentine all like hanging out.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean.
And especially when you look at like the game is notoriously not the best balanced either, because you've got really bizarre setups for a lot of characters. A lot of Jill's moveset, as you may remember, is just literally summoning zombies and stuff in different manner to do the attacking for you. It's like, wait, this is backwards.
Dude, I'm looking at the roster right now. Thanos is in there.
Yeah. Oh, man. Like, I think, if I remember right, Under Night is a sprite-based game, so you've got some really nice hand-drawn sprites in there, I'm sure. And then you've got Granblue Fantasy, which is a 3D game, but it's designed to look 2D. The Arc System Works engine is just so fantastic, because it makes anime stuff look beautiful.
Yeah.
Let's see. There we go. Granblue Fantasy. Let's see what you're based on. It's a 2.5D fighter developed by Arc System Works for the PlayStation 4, based on the role-playing game Granblue Fantasy, which released in Japan and Asia by Sega Games February 2020. North America by Xseed later this year. Okay. So, it's already out in Japan and Asia, but it's not out in America yet. It comes out in March, so the people of EVO will have roughly 6 months, give or take. Probably actually 5 months to, get caught up on it. But it's based on the role-playing game, Granblue Fantasy. So let's see the hell you are. Granblue Fantasy is a Japanese media franchise and role-playing game developed by Sega Games for Android, iOS, and web browsers, first released in 2014. So it's actually relatively recent in terms of what it is in a general sense, because it looks familiar, but I have never seen it before in my life. Wow, that's a really good
Did it come to America?
That's what I'm trying to look into more of that, but gosh, I hate this thing. Get out of here. Oh, I broke it. Okay, there it is. There we go. I fixed it. My gosh. Oh, because I opened a new window. That's why I did that. Initial release date was March 10th, 2014. Single player and multiplayer. No! Huh. Granblue Fantasy was only released in Japan, apparently. Huh. But, oddly enough, Nobuo Uematsu did a number of musical tracks for the game, and the art director from Final Fantasy V, 6, and 9, as well as Lost Odyssey, worked on the game. So that's why it looks familiar, because I'm recognizing some of the art design.
They worked on the Versus game.
No, they worked on the Japanese app game and web browser game, the main Granblue Fantasy. So I guess by proxy, yes, because the Arc System Works game is using characters from this original Design Works. So, yeah, I mean, that's really neat. That I didn't realize Uematsu worked on that. I know he does a lot of contract stuff, like he doesn't work for any one studio, but I didn't realize he did work on this. That's interesting. I wonder how many of his tracks are getting reworked into Versus. But yeah.
Good question.
Yeah, so. Yeah, that's all I had planned to discuss. Was a couple of things that, were made known in in February of 2020. I ideally wanted to start doing this in January, but I just didn't get my stuff in gear. So that's all on me.
I'll forgive you.
Yeah. I'm glad I'm glad you're going to look past this travesty. So yeah, I'm thinking might want to try and do more of these. I think it's just fun to discuss the medias at which we enjoy so much, and speculate on what's happening and just discussing it in general. You get the idea.
Indeed, just two chums talking over Discord.
Yes. Or more, depending. I mean, in the future, if we get Woody involved or anyone else involved.
Definitely. Although, I don't ever want to play another fighting game against Woody. He is way too good and aggressive.
And, you say that, but I tried to get... They had a Street Fighter Third Strike tournament at Portland this last year at the Retro Expo, which is his favorite fighting game, and I tried to get him to enter it multiple times, and he kept saying no. And my wife will attest that we kept trying to get him to join that fighting tournament, and he kept saying no. At Portland, the Woody into the Street Fighter tournament, yeah, he just was like, no.
Yeah, he seemed disinterested.
So dumb. I really wanted him to go into it, just because it's like, prove that age has nothing to do with it. Prove that you're better than these chums. These chumps.
Put them in their place.
Exactly! But, it is what it is. So, yeah, if any of you guys are watching this on the YouTubes, where I'm going to be posting it, let us know what you thought. Where do I have this stuff at? I'm trying to learn how to... Okay, this is where I have it. So, yeah, if you are interested in suggesting topics for us, there you go. Just drop a line in the comments. Let us know, and we'll consider it for our next discussion. We're going to aim to do these at the end of each month, so that way all the topics are relevant that we're discussing, at least for the month. It also gives us time to, coordinate, because we have this thing called, lives. And we... I am not a father, but Yieldman here, he is a father, and he has a lot going on at home, so it's...
3 times over.
3 times over, yeah. Well, and then if you want to include the cats, how many times over then?
Oh gosh, 6.
Anyway, thanks for tuning in, guys, and if you want to see more, subscribe and drop a line. Take care, all.